This homebrew computer is very noisily calculating the Fibonacci sequence using hundreds of electromechanical relays. And sitting beside it is a TRS-80 from 1979 doing the exact same thing, except it's using a CPU that contains thousands of transistor switches running at a speed that this relay computer could only dream of. So now I'm at the point where I want to level up my experience and try to build a transistorized version of this machine. And I'm not talking about using ICs, I mean using discrete bipolar junction transistors. And as though that wasn't challenging enough, I also want to build transistorized versions of the cards that can actually run in place of the existing ones in the relay computer. So let's get this party started where it all began, with the register card. A relay is an electrically controlled switch. When current is applied to the coil, it creates an electromagnetic field that moves internal contacts to redirect a current. And because they are electromechanical, it can take several milliseconds for the switching to occur. A transistor is also an electrically controlled switch. When a small current is applied at the base, it allows a larger current to flow between the collector and the emitter. And because they have no moving parts, they are much faster than relays. How fast? Well, a full switching cycle on the relays I'm using takes 10 milliseconds or 10 million nanoseconds to complete, whereas a full switching cycle on a 3904 transistor takes just 320 nanoseconds, which makes them a whopping 31,000 times faster than relays. Now, another difference to note is that since a relay is physically creating a circuit, the polarity of that circuit doesn't really matter. For a transistor, however, polarity does matter, and for example, in an NPN transistor, a positive base current is needed for current to flow from the collector to the emitter. When used as a switch, an NPN's emitter is tied to ground, which means that when a base current activates the transistor, a circuit is completed between the load and ground. And as they say, there's no better way to learn than by doing it, so I'll start putting together the first circuit, which is a simple switch. And I'll start off with this breadboard that contains a few of the logic gates I think I'll be needing for this project, starting with the one that we were just looking at that really acts as a simple switch. So when the input is 1, the transistor switches on and energizes the LED. And when the input is 0, it switches off. Now, it doesn't seem like it's doing much more than the switch itself, but this is really a buffer because it can be used to boost smaller signals from one circuit to drive the next circuit. Now moving on to the next logic gate, things get a little more interesting because by moving just a couple of components around, we can build an inverter, which is also called a NOT gate. So a 0 becomes a 1 and a 1 becomes a 0. And this ability to invert signals is a really common requirement in most digital logic circuits. And then moving on, our next circuit is the AND gate, which has 2 inputs and 2 transistors. And this gate requires that both inputs are 1 before the output becomes 1 as well. And then finally we have this NAND gate, which is functionally opposite of the AND gate. So with both of our inputs 0, we get a 1 output, and with both inputs as 1, we get a 0 output. And NAND gates are really cool because they're like building blocks that can be used to create any other logic gates, which will come in very handy for this next part, which is the data latch. Like the relay version of the register, we need a way to latch data only when a load control line is active. And the de facto standard for this in the transistor world is the data or D-latch. The D-latch has 2 inputs, the data and the load or enable, and then 2 outputs representing the primary value and the not or inverse of that value. And the latching circuit itself utilizes an inverter, 4 NAND gates, and this cross connection that generates a feedback loop to latch the state of the output. And for example, if we perform a load while the data input is 0, we would end up with a latched primary value of 0. And if we now perform a load while the data input is 1, the states are reversed to become a latched primary value of 1. And here's that D-latch converted to a circuit. So up at the top left, we have the inverter. Then we have the 4 NAND gates. We have an output or buffer. And I didn't bother with a buffered output for the NOT Q because I'm really only interested in the primary output. So if I go ahead and hold the data and then press load, the data value is now latched. And if I press load when the data input is 0, it becomes a latched value of 0 as well. Now that I have a working D-latch, I just needed to copy and paste it 4 times to produce this nibble-sized register. And then I doubled the whole thing again, which meant doubling the number of switches and then creating the 8 buffer circuits for the 8-bit display, which all came together nicely for some non-automated testing. And now that we have a way to store a byte, we'll need a way for it to be selected or gated to the computer's data bus. If this transistor register was just being used with other transistorized cards, then gating would be pretty straightforward. But because I want this card to also work with the relay computer, there are a couple of other things to consider. The first is that all of the relays in the relay computer are grounded and therefore activated by positive current. And since NPN transistors are connecting the load to ground, they can't be used to drive the positive current needed for the relays. And this is where PNP transistors come into play. PNPs are placed between the power supply and the load, and when the base is at least 0.7 volts less than the emitter voltage, the transistor switches on and provides positive current through the collector that can then be used to drive our relays. And the second consideration is fan-out, which is where those gated signals need to be strong enough to drive downstream circuits, which could be up to 6 relays and require 300 milliamps of current. So I've decided to use BC327 PNP transistors, which have plenty of current headroom for driving those relays. So here is my breadboard experiment, work in progress that's going on, but I think this is going to be the working model for the register. I have the PNP transistor here that is going to drive the 6 relays, and that PNP is activated by this NPN, which is then activated by the switch over here. So you can see the big difference here is that with the NPN, the emitter is connected to ground, whereas the PNP, the emitter is connected to the voltage source, and the collector is actually driving the relays. So when I press the button, we have all 6 relays activated. And we release the button, and of course everything turns off. So it's working as expected. And one other thing I just had to make sure of in this circuit was that in a situation where the relay computer is halted for some reason, maybe I've stopped the clock, for example, midstream, it may be in this situation for a while. So I just had to make sure that I wasn't getting any warmer than normal components, and I've left this on for quite a while, and nothing heats up more than room temperature. So as far as I'm concerned, this is really good to go. And then the last thing I needed to do to make this an official gate is create an AND between the data bit and the select, so that when a data bit is on the register, it is only gated when the select function is high. It was time to put this design through its paces. So I used an Arduino to set data bus values, perform a load, and then read those values back through the gated relays. And I even set up a speaker so I'd get an alarm if the output failed to match the original input. And then I just left it to grind for a few hours, which added up to thousands of load and read tests being completed. Now, automated testing is great, but the real test was hooking up this transistorized register to the relay computer, where I started a simple cycling of all the bits on the register, and that worked great. But when I started rotating smaller values, data would randomly disappear. And after fixing some loose connections, I realized that I didn't have any pull-up or pull-down resistors yet on this circuit, which would definitely cause this erratic behavior in this register. And while I'm making changes, I might as well add diodes and new drivers that will pass the register value through an IDC so the register can be used with the ALU or the front panel. But before I go much further, I've learned from past mistakes that it's better if I make the updates to the schematics first. And then I literally tear down the first prototype and rebuild the final version from the schematics, which I have to say turned out pretty amazing if I do say so myself. This was my first transistor-based project, and I am incredibly happy with how well it's going so far. The prototype register is now working flawlessly, and it seems to be getting along just fine with the relay computer. But it's not quite ready for PCB design yet, because the relay computer's register cards actually contain two registers that can work independently or be paired together for a 16-bit memory address. So the next logical step is to physically double the size of this prototype, put it through a whole bunch more testing, and then I'd be ready for the PCB design for the first transistorized register card. I also want to take this moment to sincerely thank you for your patience in waiting so long for this video. It took me a little longer to make because I spent a lot of time learning, experimenting, and refining the design. And well, it's also summertime, which around here comes with its own list of projects. And hopefully you're getting the chance to enjoy some of your summertime projects too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.